yo, let's record this. We'll have our own patch analysis to upload. So we were just talking about the rank pool. Patch coming, I believe it's going to be dropping on, it should be the 19th of March, 2024. Some interesting changes here, actually. That's going to change the power dynamics of certain civs. So step one, Dve Arabia obviously got to stay in. Cliffside, I think, is a really interesting map. I just want to give a shout out to the devs, right? Like, we give them flack for some of the issues with spawns in certain maps like forts. But Cliffside, to me, is one of the best maps they've actually created. I think it's very interesting. There's a lot of civs that can play on it. And also, although it looks like a very congested and wallable map, you discover quickly it doesn't work out that way. Got a great balance there. So really big shout out to the map design team. Rocky River, I think they temporarily had that out. Love to see that back in there. I think Rocky River was one of my favorite ones to watch. I think the nerf to the ponds was maybe a little bit overkill, but it's balanced things out so that any civ can function. Hopefully, Forts has some consistency. I think there needs to be a balanced split between where the boars are and where the sacred sites are, and also a consistency between where your starting point is. That's the biggest criticism for Forts. Gorge, to me, is still one of the best maps we have. If they fix the spawning issue with sheep, it might just be like rivaling Dve Arabia. I think Gorge is that good of a map. I think in a lot of ways it feels better than Dve Arabia. The only negative right now is because with the expansion, they introduced a new method for spawning sheep, a new piece of code. There's been some inconsistencies there. We've seen that in tournaments. We've seen someone take one side, someone take the other. Someone comes away with 18 sheep, someone comes away with 8. It doesn't make sense. So hopefully they'll figure that out. High view to me is still a jackpot. Like, you know, I was just saying it to the chat. I'll say it again as we're now recording live. Let me know what you guys think of high view. I think it can be a little bit frustrating to play because obviously there's the ambush factor, but I personally enjoy that the Stealth Forest sees a lot of good use there. I think Stealth Forest is a very key element of AoE4 that is kind of under-leveraged on some of the new maps, and it sucks. I actually personally have a big love for it. You know, you get these cool things like proxy bases, you get stealth attacks, like these type of things can't happen without that. Danube River is... we'll see how that goes. My personal opinion on Danube River is quite often it becomes a little bit stalematey. It drags into the late game, and I don't think it brings out the best in AoE4. Maybe they tweak the wood lines, make that a little bit of a finite resource. That could make a difference. Lipany, do we need to set EGC Lipany? Literally, the only thing EGC does worse is sometimes it does a 4-relic spawn, but everything else about it is better. So I'm hoping that this is a new adaptation. Four Lakes, guaranteed this is going to be the most dodged map because average players don't want to play it. High-level ranked players will indeed engage with it. We'll have to see if Four Lakes makes a comeback in tournaments. I honestly think like at least 70% of what you see in tournaments should be appearing in ranked map pool 1v1s. So wouldn't be surprised if Forts makes a return. I know Forts was meant to be in the Elite Classic 2. It actually didn't appear because of the spawning inconsistencies. Would love to see a return to High View in competitive. We have not actually seen a tournament featuring High View, an S tier or even A tier tournament in over, I want to say, a year. So that is sorely required. I'm not going to comment too much on team rank games. We occasionally watch them. This is at least a big pog for me. I love that Migration's in there. I think Migration is incredibly good fun for team ranked and free-for-alls. I can't get enough of this. Migration is still one of the most creative and awesome maps they've added to the game, just not from 1v1 perspective, of course. So let's talk about, woo, crossplay! Are you ready to just like either get boosted or get crushed by console plebs? All right, hear me out, guys. We PC gamers need to be like very uppity-nose about it. We actually have an excuse for when we lose. The excuse is very simple. Aim assist. Say it with me. Chat, say it with me. When we lose to console gamers in crossplay, it's aim assist. The only reason we lost, okay? Classic issue with development nowadays. Always easy peasy with all these aim assist gamers. So, you know, lame. All right, let's move on. Condensed victory points is actually quite nice. I think, like, this is way too invasive on the screen. This is quite self-explanatory, so that's a nice little change. Love that they made that small tweak. Would love to read deeper about some capture raise changes, maybe, but I've got a feeling I'm going to be disappointed. Nomad game mode has been added. Great. I talked with the devs about this. I think that some changes need to be made. I don't know if they've done the increased villager start, but I did recommend, like, a 9 or 12 villager start to give people options and make the opening the game much quicker. The Dominion win condition, which one was that? I can't remember. We'll move on from that. I think are they working on the matchmaking system? This means that matchmaking will result in more balanced games. Nice. Okay. That's actually good that they're using the hidden elo. I think the hidden elo should be used across the board personally. I don't actually think it should be split between ranked and solo play. Every single one should be smushed together. Here we go. They went from 3 to 5. I don't think this is enough. I think you go to 6 or 8, and it makes a lot of sense. Right now, the first 5 minutes of free-for-all is just completely redundant because of that. Why is hidden elo a thing? Because it leads to better player retention. There's like been a bunch of studies done on this, and there's a lot of proof behind it. Despite all the moaning you might see in like games like Call of Duty, where people are like, I just want to get a tactical nuke, bro. Why is it always a sweat fiesta? It's a sweat fiesta because guess what? If you are really, really strong and you hop into a lobby with 11 other people, and those 11 other people are basically just giant potatoes, and you stomp them, they're not having fun. The fun of one person doesn't outweigh the fun of 11. That's just logical. So that's why hidden elo is a thing. Because otherwise, what would happen is, you know, for a decently talented player, they might have fun stomping people in 8 minutes, but after a little bit of time of doing that, it gets boring really fast. They're not having fun anymore. And in the meantime, every poor noob that they've stomped over and over again for all those games has now stopped playing Age of Empires 4. This is exactly why skill-based matchmaking has been proven to increase retention. Despite what some naysayers will say, like I used Call of Duty because Call of Duty used to have this in the olden days. I remember it all the time. Tac nuke, tac nuke, tac nuke. Because you got a noob lobby. And it's like, you know, it kind of feels good to get a tac nuke, but just think about how many people's games are being ruined. Hidden elo has been proven to work. It makes so much sense. All right, so starting distance is increased. I like that. It just gives flexy options. It's exactly why I want to see like an 8 villager start, so you have good options across the map. I like that they're spawning in these things when the TC gets dropped. That's actually nice to see that little bit of an iteration. And I love this. They've deactivated the English villages and Chinese villages. Yes! We don't need peacetime anymore. The default nomad is going to help us. Well played there. All right, so let's move down. Dominion is... What's this condition? Play start with a monarch that must be protected at all costs. Losing a monarch leads to the instant elimination of the owning player. Oh, so they've basically added like the Outback Octagon rule set into the game by default with the max population plus 50. I don't mind this. I think like I'd personally just like this. This is a bit snowbally though. It's exactly why people stop playing Outback Octagon, because it gets very stompy by like the third elimination. You can't compete. So personally, I'd rather see something like you just get a huge amount of resources, right? That's why we do the bounty everything community games. For anyone who didn't know, we do this regularly on my channel. And the whole idea there is when you kill things, you get resources back, similar to a Mongol. Because the whole idea is you shouldn't be punished for attacking a player early on. You should be rewarded because you're not being campy. So, like, I think getting a crap ton of resources, maybe like, for example, an X percentage of the player you killed's total resources, like that they accrued in the last 10 minutes or something would be cool. But this, I'm not the greatest fan of. I guess it kind of like, you know, it's a less buggy version of a mod that doesn't get updated now because, of course, Woprox, the guy that made Outback Octagon, is just not developing anything anymore for AoE4. So Monarchs have abilities. There's a sprint in the treason. Yep, pretty much Outback Octagon. And let's move down. Quality of life. Walls under construction can now be converted into gates via an ability on the place blueprint. Ooh. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. But it's only when it hasn't been constructed. That's actually a really nice quality of life change. I know that's been really annoying for people in the past. I've even seen players in high-level games forget to add in a gate, and they just have the like units run all the way around, and it loses them a fight. So that's actually a really nice change. And units will exit the building from the location close to the rally point. Dude, thank you. Okay, so here's the thing. Some people are going to be like, oh no, skill diff, because there was a way to do this already with villages, for anyone who didn't know this. The way it worked is that you would click a resource for units to gather, then you'd seek shelter, and then you'd ungarrison, and they'd come out on the side closest to what you clicked on. But the problem with that is counterintuitive. I think it's like underwhelming, and it's also just bad design. It's the whole logic of like what's happening right now. For anyone who like follows Stormgate as well, Stormgate has this thing where you can have 12 workers on Illuminate, right? But 10 is optimal, and what you do is you stagger the move on the front so that they overlap and they no-clip each other. So it gives more resources than having 12 total. The negative of that is like it might seem like a skill play, but it's really counterintuitive and kind of dumb because it's just like it's extra choreful work to bug a system, if that makes sense. Like, think about like Dota 2 and how they turned things like stacking into a mechanic that started as a bug. That's what I see this as, is like a bug being turned into a mechanic is quite nice. So AI, I mean, well played. Japanese AI is going to use Shinobi better. That's great because I think a lot of us need to learn how to use Shinobi now. Like, these units just feel underwhelming. Not really going to focus much on the AI changes. I don't think it matters much. Some players might care about it. Let me know if I made a mistake in my video and I should have covered that. Apologies, I'll do it in the future if so. Just some Xbox updates. Shorefish can no longer be permanently removed when placing buildings on them. Oh, dude, that's sick. That's so incredible. All right, you know what? Like, I've been a little bit frustrated by a few things. One thing I will just, like, emphasize right now, this patch is likely to drop on the 19th of March, which is bad. I will criticize them for that because for those who don't know, the Elite Classic 2 finals happen on that weekend. So you basically got a patch into Grand Finals weekend, which is a terrible idea. You never do that in a tournament unless it's to fix excruciatingly ridiculous bugs. But I like that we've got some nice things in here. A positive for tournament play here. Right now, the Shorefish block is actually banned. If you drop docks to delete Shorefish on purpose and remove them, that's actually like bannable in a tournament. This now fixes it. I like that they're finally doing this because there's still some rules we have to implement in a tournament format that just are simply illogical. Like the fact that they're not in game already. Like I still think, I don't care like what your gold level player thinks. Stonewalls should not be accessible in Feudal. It's really dumb that they are. And considering the tournament format for over 2 years has said don't do it, it's castle only where you can start building stone walls. I don't know why that hasn't been changed, but this is at least signs that they're paying attention to these details. Fix an issue where villagers seek and shelter would sometimes fail to choose. Yeah, dude, this is a bit like I've lost count of the amount of games I've cast recently. You guys have been there with me, where someone will just have their villagers start running away, and then 10 villagers run into knights. That's why. So glad to see that that's being fixed. Now easy to target live animals. Good. Wait, have we got Credo in the chat? I think you'll like this change. No more boars baiting you on your TC. Where monks would duplicate relics when removing... Oh, God, dude. I don't even know how that came back in. It's kind of baffling. Is there anything else that intriguing here? I don't think so. Deer getting stuck after colliding? Damn it! Dude, now I have to pay more attention to my deer and kill them. Landmarks no longer retain their garrison arrows after being destroyed and repaired. Yeah, that's a weird one. Now for siege tower... Wait, dude, why have you even put this in? No one's building siege towers. Canadian units passes over stamped building. It will not cancel the building. Okay. I think most of these are just small things. Explosive ship kills are now counted in post-game statistics. That might be very important for Regicide and the new Dominion game mode, by the way, because currently, on the current version at least, when you kill a king with a demo ship, it doesn't register for the player that killed it, right? So I've had this before. I had a free-for-all where I destroyed Donati, just saying. Definitely didn't let everyone else do the work and then camped his king. I pinned his king in the corner on the edge of the map and had multiple demo ships. I detonated them. He died. I didn't get plus 50 population. So I think that will fix this issue as well. And then some stuff around transport ships. I think the rest of it. Yeah. Oh, wait, here we go. Forts, there we go. Wrong size of the map was used for team games. This caused starting bases to overlap with enemies and allies in rare cases. I still remember seeing like an example of this where like if you had the map in a square here, what happened is the little cliff sides and rivers between them pretty much created an impassable like that. So it was kind of like you were playing a weird version of, is it Valley? I forget the name of it. Where instead of it being like in the center, the options were on the side. A bit like French Pass, really. So that's good to see that being fixed. Everything else here just looks Gucci. Don't care about masteries. Ram health actually getting a buff. Oh, this is like interesting. So they nerfed Rams to fix the late game issue. These changes are targeted at fixing the early game issue now. So there's a much cleaner ramp up. I hate myself. Into these early Ram plays. This is a good change. Spearman bonus damage being increased. This is really important because this will be the difference now. Notice the numbers very specifically. This now will allow you to 2-hit Nestabes and Mangonels. Right now, it takes 3 hits with Springolds. That's why you're seeing meaningful situations where Mangos and Nestabes counter Springolds. So this is actually a really big fix to Siege right now. Mangos have been dominating. Don't get me wrong. I like to see units that can wipe an army, but I've even got to admit they were getting a little bit absurd. So very nice change there. Outside that, Bombard's cannons getting more health. Pretty interesting here. But it's because they're a very expensive unit. They're not really great at taking down bio units. But right now, like, hand cannoneers are very good at taking down them. So this is meant to fix that issue. Outside that, kind of interesting. I don't know what the Elite Army Tactics and Scenario Arrows issues was referring to. Probably a unit that no one built. And hence why it hasn't been complained about a lot. Stone earned from relics and pagodas reduced by 50%. That makes sense. Because this was already changed with the alternatives, right? Where you were getting less stone. It was weird that for some reason the pagodas were still working fully operational. So good change there. Alcoholic milkshake, by the way. All right, now we get into the good stuff. Civ specifics. That is a big buff to Abbasids. That's actually a crazy buff. The food stuff change is huge. Now, you're going to get food stuff pretty much every game. One thing that I do think sucks about this is that you are going to get it every game, right? It's no longer kind of an option, but I kind of understand why they did it. I think I recommended the devs at one stage just make fresh food stuff the default factor. I still kind of stand by that, but I don't think making that change would be a bit too powerful, and it kind of would make sense. But I think they didn't want to go over the top straight away. This at least balances it, and it's an eco choice you're making. So now it's a bit like textiles, but obviously, textiles buffs up your entire economy. Fresh food stuff like slows you down and doesn't benefit the existing villages. So this change to move it to the meal made a lot of sense. Camel archers having their reduction is pretty interesting. I wonder if they could even be 160 food. We'll see if this makes much of a drastic change. My prediction is it won't. I think Camel Archers are still an incredibly situational unit. And compared to the Desert Raider alternative, they are just less impactful in the early game. Crescent Wood discount being increased. I think what they're trying to do right now is buff the eco and thus force the military wing meta to go away. And I kind of get why they're leaning at that, because the military wing meta right now is a handcuff on other strategies, right? So instead, what they're trying to do is play into the Abbasid economical strengths and allow them to be more of a late game bloomer like they used to be. Instead of right now, where Abbasid dominance more comes from denial in the early game. The military wing is making up about 60, 65%, maybe even 70% at this stage of Abbasid games at the high level, because the military wing gives you the flexibility to go for your own TC, to block your opponent's TC, and to force them to react to your play. It's similar to why Desert Raid is really good for the Ayyubids. And it looks like Spice Roads has now been fixed to give the correct amount of gold, because I think it was giving less, if I'm not mistaken. Ayyubid's pretty necessary. Like, the Tower of Sultan's already trash. Having the Ram melee vulnerability made it terrible. The build time reduction is huge. I think it should have been 120, even 100 seconds, but I understand why they're a little bit reluctant. It looks like it should be an overpowered unit, but every time we see it between pathing and weird kind of target prioritization, the Tower of the Sultan is pretty underwhelming. I don't think this is fundamentally going to change anything. If it does, it'll be specific to one build, and that's going to be the Industry Wing Wood build that is going around. There's one or two players from Asia that have been spamming up the ladders right now. The idea is you get Castle Age Industry Wing. That gives you 1,000 wood. You can use that wood to go double Tower of the Sultan and then rush your opponent. It's very situational, though. And garrison units increasing... Okay, dude, that's kind of pog. I actually really like that. The only negative is... Guys, you know how clown carring was a really big thing right now with Zhuji? What if Zhuji get outdone by this? I'm kind of okay with Zhuji being like more trash on their clown carring and Ayyubid's being better because it's Tower of Sultan. But I need to test this. I don't know how drastic the speed difference is going to be. We won't be able to test it for another week. That's actually quite a big buff. So remember, like a lot of these things, like the Bannerman aura and like all the better one is the Kurotai aura with like this university text are pretty good because I'm pretty sure that functions multiplicatively. This is now the same. That's actually huge. That should be like on average what? Like I'd say about an extra 10, 20 health. So pretty good. We might finally be seeing Atabegs in Imperial Age. Wow. Okay. And then correct an issue where Desert Raid's ranged weapon was not fully benefiting from the Golden Age attack speed. Okay, so here's the thing. They fixed that, but they haven't fixed the animation cancelling for Desert Raiders, right? I would rather that they fix the Desert Raider animation cancel ASAP. Because now... I don't know, man. This is still a big issue. Like, in competitive, you're seeing it right now, where, like, a player like Vortex will not attack too quickly. They'll, like, they'll be a little bit slower about it, right? Because they're worried that they're going to animation cancel skip, and that's going to be a problem. What does multiplicative mean? I'm trying to actually... No, wait. Can someone, like, check my math? I might be being an idiot. Is this less or more? If this is less, that's bad. I don't know why they would have changed that. I lean towards it being more because Atabegs is bad. It's more. It is more. Okay, yeah. It makes sense because you're going to multiply and then you're going to multiply again, right? Whereas... if you done them like with additive, I think they got grouped together and then they got added on. So like basically what you're doing is you're increasing, you're multiplying And then after you've done that multiplication, you're doing it again. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for the clarity. I just have to test my maths after my terrible percentages earlier on. So that should explain it for the person. What did I just click? That's a weird scene. Right, anyway. So, yeah, this Desert Raider issue still needs to be fixed because in competitive play right now, you've literally got players being careful about how they use Desert Raiders so they don't look like they're animation canceling because they don't want to. All right. Big buffs, dude. Okay, this is a really big change. I think Byzantines might be about to go top A, almost S tier. Check these changes. So, like, this Kara Siphon change alone is huge. Like, actually huge. Huge increase in health as a percentage increase. Really, really nice. The ranged armor means that actually even the late game, hand cannoneers can't do anything. But this change here, saving an extra 40 gold. If you think about the issue with the early Ram Rush plays, the weakness is the gold cost. It made it impossible. This now makes it actually viable. Like, I know there's other things that are nerfed and we will get into them. But to me, legitimately, I think this is a big enough change. The early Ram plays are going to be good. Byzantines were already looking pretty fierce with these early timings of one Ram. I think now early 2 Kairos Siphon pushes are feasible with this change. Outside that, like how they've just got some bonus damage versus wolves. For anyone wondering what this is about, it's specific to the fire armor value that wolves get, and even more specifically the HRE. Wolves were just not killable with Kairos Siphons. This is the huge buff though. Check this choice. Merc Contract is now free and instant, saving 100 olive oil and 20 seconds. That is bonkers. If you think about the olive oil you get in the early game, right? When in the first few minutes, people are getting like, what, 75 to 100 olive oil a minute? You just cut 1 minute and 20 seconds off of the ramp timing for the first longbos. That is literally like having a longbow group a group earlier, right? Like, obviously, you're not going to have 10 longbos now at the time. Well, actually, you would have 10 longbos at the time. You would have had 5. But you get what I mean. Like, your timing, you're not going to spam extra longbos immediately because you have to get the olive oil together for that second wave. But this is an insane difference. And also, if I'm not mistaken, I'd have to do the maths on this. Let me quickly just math this out. Because you get 1,500 berries, and then you're going to get 0. Can someone remind me of the maths? Because you get 50% as olive oil right now, right? And then you get an extra 60%, so it's 0.82 if I'm not mistaken. So you're gonna get. Wait, did I just do divide instead of? Yeah, 1 second. You get 1,500 divided by, I think it's 0.82 if I remember correctly. Wait, no, I'm doing that wrong. It's times. Dude, I'm an idiot. Maths times 0.82. So now you're going to be getting. So you get 1,200, about 1,230 olive oil. I think I've gone too high there. Actually, I said 60%, didn't I? So it's not 0.82, it's 0.8. So you get like about 1,200 olive oil from your initial berry patch on the Grand Winery. Now, like with that change, the longbos are it's 500 olive oil, right? It's not going to change the numbers fundamentally there. Where it is going to change the numbers is, if I'm not mistaken, AoE4 Eastern Contract. The Eastern Contract might be low enough that this makes a difference. So, 1 second. Shout out to AoE4 World, by the way. Let me have a look. Wait, is there no easy way to see this? Can someone confirm for me? I'm pretty sure like the Keshiks are like 420 olive oil, right? If they're 420 olive oil, ooh, you are going to be close to having 3 pumps out of your initial load. What the bigger difference there is, like, so it's 750 off the initial berries. This shouldn't change the amount of olive oil that you get, like how many mercenaries you get out of your initial olive oil, but it is going to make it so much easier to just grab a few extra berries and get the next load pumping. Add that in with the timing, this is going to be insane. Like, I think right now Byzantines are on the verge of just being a very map dominant pick, like a better English, in fact, in the early feudal. This is going to put them over the edge. Veteran contracts have also now been reduced, which even more bonkers, right? So you're going to see a lot more of these 15 to 20 longbow builds into Fast Castle, and it's going to hit really hard. I genuinely think Byzantines just switched from being a hyper late game civ into an extremely fierce tempo civ with feudal Fast Castle. So Limitane Shield did get reduced. I just don't think this matters that much. Like, if you actually think about it right now, a lot of the games, a lot of the matchups for Byzantines has already shifted away from the Mitanni. It's not to say this is irrelevant and it won't matter in certain situations. This is actually most notably a nerf to dealing with outposts early on and also your hyper late game tank ability. But overall, I think like these buffs eclipse these nerfs. So we are getting a nerf on the Mangonel and placement damage. Not surprised there. I've been saying for ages it's busted. I almost feel like you could put it down to 6, it would still be good. I think what you're going to see here, what's the final thing? Would receive gold from Explorator's upgrade. Wait, what? I didn't know about that. That's nutty. Quick, get your games in, guys. Get Concrank. Zapahi could actually get you Explorator's gold. I think overall, though, these nerfs are eclipsed by these buffs. You need to think of Byzantines as a different civ now. It's no longer about the late game presence, rather. It's more the early game. This is still probably like a top 6, top 7 late game civ, but the early game just ramped up by about 4 on the overall, like, you know, civ list. I would put these guys as one of the most uncomfortable civs to match up against in the early game. This change might even actually make the Hippodrome a little bit better for a timing attack, in that now you're able to get into the first Keshiks insanely quick. Like, you can have them pumping the moment you start your tech up the Hippodrome. You just drop a Merc House and pump them. Getting 2 Keshiks out, super quick. We've seen what it can do for a Mongol player. We might finally be able to see what it can do for a Byzantine player. Overall, though, I just see this as a buff to the Lombo timing. I think the Lombo contract is still going to be king. All right. Actually, final thought on that. I think they should mix around some of these. I think, like, even the nerf towards Streltsy, the Lombo Landsknecht is now going to become even more dominant in the meta, because now that the importance is in Feudal and Castle Age, that is the best contract, full stop. Javelins are situational. Keshiks are like literally like, how, do you like losing games? Question mark. Barbican now accepts taxes. All right, I guess you got to pay the soldiers in some way. Nice little change there. It's basically for making China play pocket resources, right? That's actually quite nice, because you have to remember that they typically like go for a Barbican or deer, right? Now you don't actually have to like worry about all that deadweight tax on the mill. It still kind of sucks because Imperial Academy is like the way you want to tax, right? And having a taxman go out that far doesn't feel great. Deli, Ghazi Raiders are no longer missing bonus. Okay, Pog. It's funny that, like, I think some players complained about this, but most didn't notice because Deli don't really deal with Siege using Ghazi, right? By the time Siege is coming to the picture, they've moved away from Ghazi completely. But this is nice for, like, the 1 out of 100 games where you're in Imperial Age and spamming Ghazi. And Lightweight Beams, big Pog. Oh, yeah, okay, so UI, no change there for English. French now, okay, dude, I like this. This is really nice. I've been saying for a while that French and Jeanne D'Arc have a humongous issue with getting keeps now. And it's stupid because both of them require keeps. Anytime you create a civ that's like the Age of Mythology Myrmidon type situation, if that unit is critical to them looking really good as the game goes on, you cannot handcuff them. Like, every time you're nerfing keeps, you're actually nerfing specific civs more. You know, China still feels great about it, and literally they're one of the biggest benefactors of keeps. But then civs that require it for unique unit types, like the French, have just been looking underwhelming. Big buff here with the range increase. That had to happen. Like, keeps at this point are almost not doable for French ever since the Guildhall nerf. So this at least kind of offsets that a bit. I don't feel like... I want to say maybe it needs to be like 15 or 20%, but I know people would then start keep rushing and ruin for everyone. This is big, though. Dude, this is the one that's got me most excited. Marching drills is now there at the start of the game. You don't even need to get Feudal Age, by the way. Everyone's saying Rise of the Archer meta. Dude, think earlier. You know how Order the Dragon have been looking pretty slick with the early little Spearman pokey? And big shout out to Purple Haze for the sub. Appreciate you, buddy. You just got to be part of the video. I think you could actually legit do some Spearman openings in Dark Age now. I legit think that could end up happening here. And HRE is a good civ for this. This is also, by the way, bonkers for water hybrid maps. Think about the best ones. HRE, Mongols, English can function quite well as well, right? HRE just got a big upgrade. That marching drills allows you to pump and keep track. Like, you can actually mirror and then outpace Mongol players now. At least that's the way I'm perceiving this. With the extra 40% gathering speed at the very beginning, and now the extra speed, you can play much more up in your opponent's face. And we are going to get a buff to mine work. I still think... Okay, hear me out. I actually think this and this... Although this looks like a nerf to this, I disagree. I think there's going to be some feudal all-in plays from HRE that have not seen much exploration that just got a lot better, and I'm not even no capper. Think about the English matchup as an example. English is all about the blacksmith timings. If you're HRE, I actually legit think you play Minework and you go into mass archers, and with this timing and marching drills already there, you slap the crap out of the English. It's crazy. So like I actually think that Minework might have some situational usage now with this buff and this one in mind. This is actually given HRE a big ramp up in the early game timings. One negative that still exists with the HRE that I'm not a big fan of, and you see Order of the Dragon don't suffer for it, right, is that you don't have the build speed to easily amplify your production in Feudal. That has been the #1 shackling point for HRE and why you see them always go Castle Age. Getting enough production buildings online has always been a grand difficulty for this Civ. It's why you see other greedy Civs like the Chinese able to spam Chiganu, because they can supervise to make it better. All right. Castle of the Crow, just some small little tweaks. Yeah, nothing big here. Wait, Pog? Wait. Did they actually... Whoa. Did they buff Capture Age? I think they did. The amount of times where I've just seen people call, like, I don't know, Puppy Paw or someone a noob because he hasn't got Wheelbarrow. But he has. Okay, this might actually be big. Dude, I was not expecting any buffs to the Capture Age. I hope they fix Melee, though, because I'm seeing nothing here about Melee, and that's still a problem. Jeanne D'Arc, Consecrate help. Now updates after researching. Okay, it's just, like, little tweaks. All right, I did notice Philisberto crying earlier on. Okay, dude. HRE change and this Mongol change. HRE, I think, actually just went above Mongol. Uvu has lost over 10% of its passive stone income. That is a really, really big nerf. Moving buildings rotation rate reduced, so they do not instantly snap. Okay, that's also another nerf, right? Because like the early rotations with the Gur, also when you build buildings near you now, it means that they're going to take time turning instead of just going straight away. So that's pretty sucky. Carnate Palace Roost Knights now properly use Poleaxe. Guys, it's fine. Mongols' early game is ruined, but have you heard about Imperial Age? Horse Archers now properly use Gallop. I think this was an issue of Roost as well, so I'm expecting that's a fix across the board. And the Nestabes at least get the additional barrels. So basically, they've middle-fingered Mongols one trick in the early game that makes them viable and given them Imperial Age. Prayer Tent no longer grants vision on pre-placement. Oof. Yeah, this is pretty rough. A crash relating to Silver Tree. Yay, crash is removed. Oh, dude, they fixed the issue where units could get trapped. I still remember that from our Mongol-only free-for-all, where someone's entire Keshik army got stuck in a dead landmark. Allies of a Mongol player can now set the Silver Tree as a trade destination. Quite nice. Okay, so that's actually quite a nice buff to team games. But yeah, this is a pretty annoying hit. I feel like this delays your tower rush timing by like an extra 30 seconds or so, which is quite a lot, actually. I think that's a big stinger. So what you have to remember is with the current stone pacing, you're able to drop a Rax and double produce Spearman every minute. Now you can't, right? Now, like, you're behind. So it definitely hurts the timing here. I think it shouldn't impact the 4 Spearman rush too much. But if you're going mass Spearman, like, for example, when we saw the Malian Mongol game where it turned into a 20 Spearman mass, this will hurt that. Order the Dented, another Ark and Chapel buff. God. All right, we're getting there. Minework Palace bonus as well. They've got the same thing. Golden Cuirass has... Dude. Okay, this is dumb and this is dumb. I'm just going to like flatly say these are dumb changes. This is not needed. This is, though, yes. Golden Cuirass is literally the reason you get Minework Palace. These are just nice little fancy pieces as the game goes on that still don't fix the fact that you suck in late game. We have, however, now got projectiles for the hand cannons, so they're no longer shooting sonic sound at people to kill them. Big pog. This is interesting because these changes are basically pigeonholing Order of the Dragon into the similar issue they already face, which is they are early game oriented. This does not fix that issue. The Ark and Chapel buff does not fix that issue. The Minework buff actually amplifies the early game effect. Order of the Dragon were already relying on feudal and early castle, and now they are even more reliant. This is a civ that can only play Imperial Plus with 75% of the gold on the map in their purview. And that hasn't changed here. Even in that situation, certain civs, like, for example, the Ottomans, will still beat you. So I honestly, like, I'm shocked by a few of these changes. Like, these are just dumb. Like, sorry, that's mean. These are ill-informed changes. Bodkin Bolts, I get why they've done it, because Siege is more squishy. I don't agree with this change. This is just too expensive. Even Zornhau feels like too expensive. It just... It's kind of, these two changes are kind of silly. This one is 100% needed. For anyone who tries to say that no, Golden Karash shouldn't be nerfed, you have just outed yourself as a men-at-arms rusher, and I know you're crackety old. So this change made sense. I think they still need to figure something out on what to do with the late game, whether it's like some sort of university tech that increases units' attack speed or something like that. Because right now, like, you know, late game isn't about a direct fight, it's about splitting the map. And one big issue with Order of the Dragon is they suck when you have to split. They don't have enough troops. Ottomans. Woohoo! We done it, guys! Oh, wait, they got... Wait, why did they get extra arm? Okay, so this has, like, this is now one less springled shot. Actually, two less springled shots, I think, because they got the +5 damage. So that's a fairly decent nerf. They die in... Is it 4 or 5 springled shots now? It might still be 5. This is before Siege works, of course. Always good to see Great Bomb mods getting nerfed. I think they're still way too good. Vizier experience requirements. This is pretty interesting, actually. So they increase... So it's going to take longer to get those unlocks. Dude, this actually... I think this is a buff to the Deli Ottoman matchup in particular. Remember what I say about that matchup? The longer the age goes on, the better it gets for Deli because of the Vizier points. This just screwed your timing. So I have a feeling we're going to see less long feudal Ottoman games and more fast castle, fast imp. Which... I guess every civ has to have its strength and weakness, and if they don't want to nerf the late game, this is fair. But at the flip side, I'd rather they made early game still viable for Ottomans and hurt their late game more. I'm not crazy about this change, but like the issue is, unless you completely rework Great Bombards, I think Great Bombards are always going to be a unit that's either overpowered or underpowered. I think it's very difficult to find the mid-ground with that unit. But this basically hurts prolonged feudal play. You're going to see a lot more Ottoman players try to get out of feudal. Military score production speed has also been reduced. So, another reason why you're going to want to get out of feudal. You're going to see a lot more Castle Age games now out of Ottomans. I think this makes the Deli matchup now favored for Deli. That's a really big change. I think someone somewhere on one of my YouTube videos made a really good suggestion. Apologies, person. I'm forgetting who it was who made the suggestion. So shout out to you. Definitely like put your hand up on the video. They suggested the idea of moving the Mehmed Imperial Armory to the tier 4 and moving the Seagate Castle to tier 3 landmark. I actually legit think that fixes a lot of the problem here. Because then you have to choose between an increased production rate or 3 Great Bombards. I'm a really big fan of that change. And also it gives this interesting kind of reset. If Ottomans have to Desperation Castle Age, they also do have access to a defensive landmark to save them. Also, actually, the other thing that's really good about the Seagate Castle as a tier 3 landmark, it complements the idea of Sultanate Trade Network. I legit think one of the best changes to rebalance to see if they can make with Ottomans, single changes, is moving Seagate Castle to tier 3 and Mehmed Imperial Armory to tier 4. Because that also, like, the add-on effect isn't just that it makes Trade Network good now, it's that it also makes the tier 3 choice relevant. Now you have to think, do I actually want to get my hands on extra Vizier points, or do I want to get my hands on the buffs around my traders and a defensive landmark? So I really hope they consider that change. It's probably one of the best ones they can make to Ottomans right now. And finally, Roost. Hunting cabin build time has been increased. This is actually really important. Right now, the Roost are kind of dominating because of the scout power, right? You always go free scouts. You always have map control. This actually might change the meta so that Roost players stop doing free scouts and move to a 2-scout meta. Boys Fortitude cost has been increased. No surprise there. Night spamming in feudal into Castle Age. This was just way too big of a buff. Also, Boys Fortitude. Here's an interesting thought for you guys. With Boys Fortitude and Biology, you actually have tankier knights than the French with royal bloodlines. So it should be a bit more expensive. I actually forgot that this used to be this cost, I'm pretty sure. It used to be 500, then they brought it to 350, and now it's back to 500. And they've created an issue where horse archers would not retain the mounted precision bonuses when advancing. Ah, interesting. That might explain like where the issues around Gallop were happening. So let's just quickly go down. I think this is most things. Okay, yeah. Wait, is that literally everything? Yeah, we've already gone through everything. Okay, so let's just give our final thoughts. Biggest changes around this patch. We're going to see Mongols being less of like an A, borderline S tier pick in competitive. I think they're now maybe a solid A, slightly more towards B. On the flip side, we've actually seen HRE go from what most people are looking at as a C or B situationally up to, I'd say, BA. And I think HRE is now going to win a lot more matchups than they previously did. The English one was already a good one depending on map. But now with the marching drill being there by default, I think you can actually ramp into archers quick enough to shut down Lombo spam before they become unwieldy. Other matchups where this could actually have an impact, I think HRE now can be a little bit more frustrating for greedy civs. Especially those that don't want to actually activate in the early game. HRE versus Ayyubids actually may have just became an interesting matchup because if you open up with like a Dark Age Rax and rush your opponent's base with marching drills, you can force them to be present. So I'm especially curious to see the changes around the HRE Ayyubid matchup because so far it's been a castle age race, one that Ayyubids win because the Desert Raider sets the tempo. But now with marching drills being there by default, if you open Desert Raider, the Spearman will gap close you quickly. So those are small examples of what HRE are going to do. I actually think HRE is by far the biggest benefactor. They've risen in the ranks by maybe 3 or 4 civs. They're above now compared to where they were previously. I think they were like 12th, 11th. So really big buffs there. Surprised that the French change didn't apply to Jeanne D'Arc as well with the keep stone cost reduction. I'm a little bit sad with the way that they've designed Jeanne's keep. I think if you want to have a Myrmidon Age of Mythology type civ, you need to make sure that that civ can actually have a way of eventually reaching into them. And with the way that stone works in the game right now, I don't think that exists. So I would love for them to take another look at either moving that out, making it a tech so you can actually research your champions in a different type of building. Maybe a unique structure that costs wood that you could build. Maybe you make it like a mini fort that has like, it's basically just a glorified outpost, but it costs 400 wood. That would be a cool change for Jeanne D'Arc. And it would also give her a bit more variety, uniqueness, which I think they're aiming for because Jeanne D'Arc is so similar to French right now because they want it to be about the hero. Over time, I want to see them evolve it into its own unique civ. But yeah, TLDR for those just tuning in, wondering, okay, what am I doing right now? What's the big changes? Byzantines and HRE are by far the biggest benefactors of the patch. Byzantines just went from, I'd say, about a top 6 civ to, I'd say, easily a top 4 civ. These changes around the early game tempo, yes, they got a nerf to Limitane. Limitane were mattering less now. People already moved away from that. It's all about the Lombos, the initial contracts. It's a humongous buff to them. Abbasid is a secret creeper here. They're still situational civ. I don't think they're going to be overpowered. I think the Eco Wing changes has moved them away from the Military Wing desirability. They've tried to give more of a balanced choice, but Military Wing is still going to dominate in competitive. Abbasid is, depending on the matchup, mid-pack. I'd say if you're playing in your non-competitive games, just on the ladder, Abbasid is maybe like bottom of the rung, bottom third of the civs. But in competitive now, with these changes, they've moved firmly about mid of the pack. They're situational. They require a deeper draft where you can get the right matchup on the right map. But generalist-wise, Byzantine and HRE pickers arise. Both people claiming the Roman Empire now need to clearly fight it out in a best of 21 to decide who is the true inheritor of Rome. Thanks for watching, guys. If you liked the video, make sure to like it. Make sure to comment down below. Let me know what big changes you think I missed, what big things I can't even see coming, because I'm sure there's going to be a few things that even I glanced over here. I'm really excited for this patch to come out. It looks like it's going to be happening the weekend before the grand finals of our first S-tier tournament in 2024. A little bit of advice for Microsoft. Definitely let them know that you feel this way. Be polite about it, though. Never, ever, 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 ever drop patches in playoffs. Should never happen. You can maybe get away with between group stage and playoffs. You should never, ever, ever be compromising the meta state of the game as soon as playoffs begin. You are messing with people's livelihood in a situation where then the difference between getting 4th or getting 2nd could be the difference between making their rent. And they may deserve that 2nd place based on what they've done with the previous meta, and they might get caught out by a weird out of left field strategy. I'm all for innovation. I'm all for evolving the meta or dying because you're left behind, but I don't like that players are literally having no time. Also in playoffs, keep in mind, they have limited amount of players to like logically scrim with. A lot of people are burnt out. They probably don't want to play now because they're not going to be there. In group stage, there's at least a lot more people they can grind out against. So, good patch. Love to see that we're tweaking some of the weaker civs. I still think there's a lot of question marks here, things that haven't been resolved. Ayyubid's early game ramp up is still powerful. I think Ayyubid's the changes are kind of meaningful, but realistically, the issue isn't everything they adapted. It's just how powerful they are going from feudal to castle age. That is still going to need to be resolved. Ottomans drastically need an overhaul with their landmarks. Roost, nice little tweak there. I still think they're going to be a strong civ. We're getting there gradually. The Kremlin is the next thing to be tackled. Once that's done, I think Roost become more of a mid-tier pick that has its strengths but isn't overpowered. But yeah, once again, make sure you smash the likes, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and I will see you all in the next chapter.